Hi lovies and welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, my name is Malinda's channel. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. And to my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos and also educate you guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much. All right, lovelies, let's dive into this video. So, lovelies, I came across this video on my For You page on TikTok, and I thought to share with you guys where a lot of people are reacting to the fact that a particular guy was talking about how the Holocaust was actually the most dangerous thing that could have ever happened to humanity compared to slavery, and this got a lot of people reacting. Like, a lot of people were stitching, but when you are a black creator or something and you stitch the video, TikTok is just going to take it up. But I was just able to put up this stitch from this, to ladies trying to make us understand what is actually going on. I'm just going to roll it as well as some of other stitches I was able to put together. Please leave me your own thought in the comment section. Of course, by the end of the video, I'll be leaving my own thoughts. Alright, lovelies, let's get into it.
So I'm sure you've seen Yuval's video that has since been taken down, or you've seen a stitch of it, or somebody with their 2 cents. And here I am to put in my 2 cents as somebody who has studied the Holocaust and World War II for 10 years. I've written a course about it, I have taught about it, I'm writing a book about how to teach about World War II better, because it's not taught about very well in the United States, and this is very relevant to this conversation. And I'm also writing a very controversial book, a comparative analysis of the genocides and why we only teach about one. This video is going to be really long, and it's going to be several parts, and I'm going to say a lot of words that the algorithm really doesn't like, so make sure to interact, please. So this all started when a black creator said that Israel paid for the Holocaust to be prominent in American and Western education, and they are correct. And then Yuval went on a 7-minute tirade about it. Now, I think Yuval said that word choice matters, and it does, and his word choice was not super great in his video. So when you say Israel paid for Holocaust education, what you mean is Israeli lobbyists, Israeli organizations, and organizations like the United Holocaust Memorial Museum paid for it.
The reason why most people think that the Holocaust is the worst tragedy to ever happen to humanity in the modern era is because Israel paid for that to be the reality, because the numbers just actually aren't there.
Yes, they are. You have to be so willfully detached from reality to even begin to suggest that the only reason that the Holocaust is taken as seriously as it is because Israel paid for it.
Saying things like this really triggers some people because it makes you think that it's an anti-Semitic trope of the Jews control the world with money. Now, that is anti-Semitic, but it's factual to say that Israeli organizations lobby for Holocaust education. Israel has in fact paid for it since the late 1960s, and until then there were only a few books, namely a book by Hannah Arendt and another by Raoul Hilberg, and those were very controversial. Raoul actually had over 20 members of his family perish in the Holocaust, so he's very connected to this, and he's one of the leading prominent Holocaust historians. And when his book came out, The Destruction of the European Jew, everyone was like, no, we don't want to dredge up the past, don't talk about it, especially American Jews who wanted to distance themselves from Israel. In 1967, after the Israelis won in an Arab-Israeli war, the US decided that Israel would be a good proxy for power in the Middle East. And that's when people started to remember the Holocaust and fear this propaganda that there would be a second Holocaust to come. That's why they needed all this power. That, along with saying that anything that is criticism of Israel is just inherently anti-Semitic, is all part of Israeli propaganda to garner support and deflect criticism.
I want to be clear, I think it's strange to say anything is the worst thing to ever happen in human history, because I think it is bizarre to rank tragedies.
Many people have pointed out the pure irony in you saying that it's bizarre to compare or rank tragedies, and then you go on to promote the complete uniqueness of the Holocaust, thereby ranking it above everything else.
But I also think it is very weird to respond to somebody who's saying, I think X is the worst thing to ever happen to humankind, whether that be the Holocaust, slavery, colonialism, and respond by going, well, actually, and then citing some other event that had a larger body count.
Are you not actuallying her?
I just have one thing to say about this Holocaust discourse, and that's that y'all will literally do anything but listen to black women. And because of that, all of us live in hell. And as someone who immigrated from Ukraine and then switched over to an American curriculum halfway through my schooling, let me just tell you why this is so dangerous, what you guys are doing. This Holocaust defenderism is so disingenuous. And for y'all not to realize that it is propaganda in some way, shape, or form is again why we all live in hell. So let's talk about what it is that Maddie was actually trying to say. And let me back it up with some like figures and statistics for you, just to put it in perspective, okay? And as somebody growing up in Ukraine, it should have been kind of weird to me when we were learning so much more about the Holocaust that resulted in the death of 6 million Jews. And we were learning about the Holodomor, which again resulted in about 3.9 million deaths. At the very least, there are some statistics that say 10 million people, which is very comparable to the Holocaust. Okay. So now mind you that both the Holocaust and the Holodomor lasted around 10 to 15 years. Look at these numbers right here. 246 years, 400 years, 12.5 million people. Another critical thing that people miss when we talk about these numbers is these were just the people that were initially brought over. So like not including all of their descendants. These people were not killed off systematically. They were worse, systematically kept alive to not only labor for a country that they didn't come from, a country where they were brought involuntarily. Obviously they were laboring without pay or being abused while they were laboring. And not only that, but like it predates the 2 world wars that we had. This was a deep, systematic, and multi-generational crime against humanity. It actually probably led and paved the way for the type of propaganda and treatment that Jewish people were subjected to. Okay, so this is what I learned in Ukraine, all right? And yes, we were definitely taught about the Holocaust. It's like the only thing that I really learned about as far as the atrocities that have happened in my own country, which the Holocaust was preceded by a huge atrocity that happened in my country that my grandmother lived through. And I wasn't taught about it in my Ukrainian school as much as we were taught about the Holocaust. The pieces of information that I was given about the Holocaust, like those were the ones that I walked away with and like remembered. And yes, we learned about every horrific thing that happened. We learned about Ukraine's involvement in it. We learned about all the torture, all the atrocities were covered. Now, you guys have to understand that history textbooks don't just come out of nowhere. Like, people put them together the way that they're put together for a reason. And let me show you guys this too. This is talking about Holodomor in Ukraine. The important thing for y'all to know is that in Soviet Ukraine, the Holodomor was kept out of official public discourse until shortly before Ukraine won its independence in 1991. We now know that explicit instructions were issued throughout the Soviet Union banning the use of the word famine, not only in party and military documents, but also in medical records and statistical accounts. So even the people that lived in my country that were putting together textbooks for me to learn about what has been happening in my country for the past, hundreds of years, they were not yet to a point where they were allowed to address this trauma openly for more than 50 years. The Soviet regime prevented families and individuals from processing both personal and national grief. That's to bring it back to why I was taught so much about the Holocaust and so little about the Holodomor. As a Ukrainian who lived in Ukraine, who was born in the year that Ukraine gained its independence, I was taught nothing about this because it wasn't in the public memory, because it wasn't allowed in the public discourse, because evidence of it was destroyed systematically. Okay, now this brings me to America, where, mind you, I spent like the latter half of my education. So everything that I learned in Ukraine about the Holocaust, I learned from grades 1 through 5, and they spared no detail. They spared no gruesome, horrific detail of what happened during the Holocaust. As far as the Holodomor, we saw maybe like a couple pictures of like really skinny people that were like starving to death. When I tell you that I came to America and like literally based on my education, I thought that slavery was literally not a big deal because of the way that it's taught here in America. You guys need to understand that, yes, the education system, as Maddie said, has a fucking agenda. The way that slavery was covered in my history books and my history classes specifically is very especially atrocious. Coming from a country where I was so well educated on other war and country crimes, it was especially misleading because basically the way that slavery was presented in my American history classes and my American textbooks was the settlers brought some people over from Africa to help build the great country of America. And then they realized that this was actually slavery. And then slavery was abolished. Everybody was happy and everybody lived happily ever after. And we are a country with equal rights now. That is basically, tell me I'm fucking lying. Tell me I'm lying. That's basically how slavery is covered in American history courses and textbooks. Slavery is very much portrayed as like a thing that America had no control over. And like once they realized it was was happening on their land, everybody was horrified and they stopped it right away and it never happened again. Like, that's literally how it's presented. And this is what the original creator was trying to say. And after I learned the truth about slavery, which I will tag a couple videos here that just scratch the surface a little bit of what happened during the period of time when people were enslaved in America, and I realized the discrepancy between the truth and what is being taught in schools, the American problem of racism made perfect sense to me. And it like stuck out to me like a sore thumb, like I just couldn't unsee it. It made sense to me why people were so upset and being like, oh, they're just trying to white guilt us, and this is reverse racism, and this is why like critical race theory is so evil, and this isn't unity, this is divisive, talking about racism and slavery is divisive. Like, it made perfect sense, because unless you actually go out and educate yourself to the atrocities that happened on this land where you exist, you won't know. Like, you won't know. You won't know. You won't learn it in school. Your parents won't tell you. Nobody's going to tell you these things other than the people that it happened to. But you won't listen because you don't think it was a big fucking deal. And the more egregious and like nonsensical part of this whole thing to me is that people seem to take the Holocaust more seriously because it seemed so like senseless and so arbitrary. And like, yes, people were assigned like evil characteristics just to make the killing off of them okay. And that is terrible. Please do not hear me saying that that is not terrible. But for some reason, generations of slavery and abuse and gaslighting and brainwashing and like absolute mental and physical annihilation to the slaves was a multi-generational 400-year-long period of extreme abuse and maligning of black people by white people. But because it produced capital, we're not that upset about it. In fact, we still resort to this very tactic to produce capital. If you've ever heard of prison labor, it's essentially slave labor. Prisons are meant to be a place to rehabilitate people, and instead they are working for pennies an hour, making license plates and things like that, and hand sanitizer, because our government wants to spend its money on war rather than paying like citizens to produce and labor for money and actually rehabilitating the prisoners. So slavery literally still exists in this country because it's not being talked about. I'm going to show you guys this one more time. Loss of collective memory, kept out of official public discourse. Now again, there's something happened here that allowed it to be part of the discourse. Ukraine won its independence in 1991. You need to know that as an American, you're still here. You're still in the loss of collective memory, kept out of official public discourse stage. True independence has not happened yet in America. America is not independent. It's not independent of murder, of slave labor, and theft from its own citizens to fund wars. America is not free. America is not an independent country. But these are the patterns that Maddie was trying to tell you guys about. That you are learning about history in a linear, individualistic way. You're not learning about these things as a pattern. You're not learning that certain things precede these crimes against humanity every time. And then if y'all actually knew the pattern, then we would actually have a chance of becoming an independent country. And that if y'all actually knew the pattern, then this Western individualistic, don't punish me for the sins of my ancestors type shit would have never even been accepted here. Instead, there's this focus on this one horrific event. And I'm not saying it wasn't politically motivated, but the other two things that I mentioned in this video, the Holodomor and slavery, there was definitely a political motivation both times to keep these things out of the discourse, out of the public discourse. It's not the case with the Holocaust. That's why it's so easy for so many people to see the Holocaust as like this horrible thing, like this once-in-a-lifetime event. It's not a once-in-a-lifetime event. Ukraine's going through it right now. Israel's doing it to Gaza, to Palestine right now. The people that had the Holocaust happen to them have turned around and systematically eradicated, wiped clean almost an entire population, destroyed all of its history, all of its monuments, all of its churches, all of its buildings, its hospitals, killed children, killed mothers, killed everybody. And they lied to everybody about why they did it. And their children are not going to learn about this in history books. What would be the political motivation for that? And we will keep repeating these genocidal cycles over and over and over and over again until we start talking about what's the motivation, what are the patterns leading up to these things, and how do we eradicate that. The reason we don't talk about that is because that would destroy capitalism and the Western world, all of the shit that makes rich people richer. That's why we don't talk about it. So I hope that helps. Please listen to black women. Just listen. It'll just save you so much time in the long run. Just listen. Godspeed.
One of my mutuals made a great point when it comes to people talking about the Holocaust versus slavery. When people bring up the Holocaust, they understand how bad it was. Like in every single minute detail, if you ask someone like how bad was the Holocaust, they'll be able to say in every detail what exactly happened to Jewish people. Justifiably so. But when it comes to slavery, I feel like you guys just don't do it a justice. They used to eat us, bro. They used to eat us. They used to use our skin as furniture. They used to use our hair as insulation for their clothes. They used to castrate us in streets for public display in front of their children. They used to essay black men as a form of intimidation to other black men. Look up what buck breaking is. I'm telling you right now, them books in high school that you used to read about slavery do not do it justice. These people were such sick animals to us. It's so crazy how people just gloss over like, oh yeah, slavery happened. What? I really need y'all to see the severity of how bad slavery was. The same way y'all do the Holocaust.
Seriously, lovelies, this has actually made the whole of internet reacting. So it all started about 2 to 3 days back where, a young black lady was actually talking about, she's very good on this historical fact about, what happened in the past and all of that. And she went ahead to make a statement talking about how the Holocaust is well taught in school, is well exposed, people know more about it. It's something that a lot of people can give details about it. And a lot of people, she was like, people knew about this because, Israel paid for it, paid for the education and all of that. And that was why, people have to know about it. And you can actually compare the Holocaust compared to that of what happened during slavery and all of that. So this Yuval of a guy who have actually built his platform with black people and all of that. I used to follow this guy, and he decided to stitch her video talking about how she shouldn't say that it's kind of anti-Semitic and all of that, that all crimes are crime and all of that, no matter how it is, that it's not good to actually compare crimes. And he said it in a way that make it look as if the Holocaust is well known because it's actually happened to educated people or something, like or a civilized people compared to that of slavery and all of he made so many comments that he have to actually delete the said video. But I was able to just put some little bit of the stages of the video because a lot of people were coming with their own different opinion of what he said and how they actually understood what he was trying to pass there. A lot of people were talking about, in their own understanding, they mean that he's trying to gaslight black people, trying to the Holocaust actually happened to a civilized country compared to that of slavery, because slavery happened to people that is uncivilized or something. So when other people were understanding it, he was it's not something that is paid for. It's just something that we shouldn't try to compare compare it, that is uncomparable, that crime is crime, no matter how big or small it is and all of that. But this got a lot of people reacting, because it's as if Holocaust is more well focused. People talk more about it. People that they even have to pay reparation for those people that was affected. But in terms of slavery is not discussed, it's not talked about, it's not actually taught in school on how it went, the detailed explanation, the way at which they teach people about slavery, or we talk about slavery, is just something that is as if it's something that is just so common. Some group of people came to a particular place and they did a job, and after some certain while the job ended and all of that. A lot of things is also going on in Congo, there are genocide all over the place, but the way at which they're making this Holocaust more important compared to other things that people has actually went through made a lot of people to start reacting, to also come out to talk about how slavery is another thing that is so inhuman, even if they don't want to teach such in school, even if they have limited, the resource to actually make people to know how, dangerous it was then, how inhuman it was. They never gave people opportunity to actually know the details, to know how inhuman this slavery, this slave period was. This is why, all this historical fact that has to do with slavery, that has to do with what really happened, in the past, and all of that has to be stripped out from school, because they don't want people to know about it. They don't want people to know details about it. The only thing that want you to know is that some group of people came from Africa and they helped to build the nation, and after which everything was ended. No, they don't want to go through details. They don't want, the world to know what is going on. That is why, during the course of this Putin revealing its vote, it got a lot of mixed feelings. A lot of colored people were actually, happy about that, because that is the beginning of our history. That is the beginning of whom we are. So you can comparing these two things is just something that is so, I don't know. And this is why a lot of people were just angry and reacting, because people were like, you cannot compare slavery with Holocaust. Slavery not being taught in school or not being well detailed does not mean that it is just something that happened for a very short period of time, and after which everybody was okay. Compared to the way at which this Holocaust of a thing was taught and all of that. But the first lady that actually talked about it, which has made revolt to make such statements, she was talking about, the reason why is as if Holocaust was, discussed, was taught, was all detailed and all of that, was because it was funded to be taught in all schools. Meanwhile, this other one was not funded. Even if it was, they hid this slavery thing. So I think that was all of these things, that all the controversy that is happening between the Holocaust and the slavery, which was the worst in human time and all of that. And the fact that Yuval was talking about how civilized Germany was, and that was why it was known. It was not because Germany was civilized and all of that. Then the the slavery stuff was uncivilized. Like, it has to do with so many things. Anyway, lovelies, why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We're just here for educational and informative purposes. So please, subscribe to this channel, turn notification, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one. And if you have watched up to this extent, thank you so much for all the love and support. Why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We're just here for educational purposes. So please subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that. Like, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.